This week at Busted Chicken, we are celebrating America's 250th birthday, and today we're talking about one of the most American movie concepts ever created. I don't mean a movie about baseball, such as The Rookie, The Sandlot, The Natural, or other The movies. No, and we're not doing a video on apple pie or even American Pie, neither the movie or the song, although maybe we can take a sidestep from there and just focus on Paris Dillon for a bit. Oh, no, sorry. I got distracted a little, and yeah, it happens. But this is no time for distractions. I am, in fact, a professional and a serious person. And this is a serious series. And today, we are adding to our Seriously Serious series a seriously serious movie that portrays a fake holiday that many people once believed was actually being made real. I am, of course, talking about The Purge. And today, for America 250, we're looking at the third film in the franchise, Election Year. If you're unfamiliar with The Purge, which is like probably 6 of you, the film essentially chronicles one night of the year when it's legally permissible to commit any crime, including offing someone. And for some reason, that's the only crime anybody ever wants to commit in these movies. I'll tell you what I would do, but I'll leave that for the end. The general idea of The Purge is that supposedly giving the citizens a few hours where they can do whatever the hell they want will reduce crime rates. Basically, if you know that you can get away with hitting your neighbor with a dump truck because their dog keeps shitting on your front step, you'll wait until then to do it, rather than the next time it happens, Jeff. It also somehow protects the economy. I'm not really sure how that works, considering most of the people who are being killed are the working class who do all the jobs that the people pushing the purge don't want to do themselves, but okay. While there are 5 films in the franchise with another one announced, plus a 2-season TV series, Election Year stands out among them because it puts focus on the government politicians who, until now, have made themselves immune from the purge. But when one senator has her eye on not just the presidency, but also stopping people from killing, maiming, and destroying each other en masse, the political elites at the top decide to flip the script and take her out using the very system she wants to end. In other words, politicians are now fair game. Released in 2016, The Purge Election Year follows the story of Senator Charlie Roan, played by the wonderful, totally terrific, beautiful, and awe-inspiring Elizabeth Mitchell. And to say that I have a thing for Elizabeth Mitchell is kind of an understatement. I have her autograph on my wall. If I find out she's in a movie, I watch it. I thought she was one of the best parts of the V reboot. I like her in pretty much everything, though I was less thrilled about her character in Running Scared, which I mentally retconned to being played by Jennifer Lawrence, who generally makes me want to hit my head on cinder blocks. But yeah, Elizabeth Mitchell is basically my number one, and she always will be. So much so that if my wife can't remember her name, she just says, your girlfriend. And we both immediately know who she's talking about. And though I could spend this entire video talking about how much I dig this woman, I should probably move along now before my wife decides to purge me. Frank Grillo is also back in the purge as Leo Barnes, now the head of security for Charlie. When immunity for high-ranking government officials is revoked, it's Leo's job to make sure Charlie's kept safe, a task that will prove damn near impossible throughout this film. We also get Betty Gabriel as Lainey Rucker, an ex-badass now turned ambulance driver who goes out on purge night to help people who are hurt. Mykelti Williams, who I like in pretty much everything, plays Joe Dixon, a hard-working store owner who loses his property insurance the day before the purge starts. The basic story for this movie is simple, as it usually is for these films. Senator Charlie Roan is running for president. Her entire campaign centers around ending the purge entirely because, and I know this might seem controversial, but she seems to think that murdering your neighbors once a year for a mild slight against you might not actually be solving America's problems. She also has a personal bias against the mass slaughter of people. Her entire family was wiped out one purge night after a lunatic in a goofy, stupid-looking mask invaded their home and started knocking off her family members to a George Clinton song. And as far as we know, there was no reason behind it. He was just some stupid asshole who decided to go after them, and the purge laws put into place by the new founding fathers of America allowed her family to be legally exterminated. She only survived because the nut job allowed it, as part of his twisted game, while the rest of her family had to take one for the team. As you can expect, this event steered the direction of her life, driving her toward her goal of taking power to eliminate the purge altogether. Naturally, this makes certain powerful people very unhappy because, as we quickly discover, the people who are making the rules and profiting from the purge are protected from it. Political leaders, government officials, and ultra-wealthy members of society who encourage bloodshed and violence and destruction against each other hide behind heavily armed security, while the rest of us get to run away from psychotic teenage hookers with machine guns. In the film, we see that people are starting to question why those who encourage this mayhem have immunized themselves from it, while putting the rest of us on the game board to be systematically eliminated. After all, If this was so great and beneficial for the country, why aren't they out there wandering the streets to get taken out by a douchebag in a panda costume? Or sitting at home without armed guards to protect them from a disgruntled voter with a machete? Charlie's push against the Purge gets more and more people on her side, and with a major climb in the polls, the NFFA decides they've had enough of her shit and plan to get rid of her legally. The day before the Purge, they lift the prohibition against level 10 government officials, which we don't really know the extent of who that includes, but we do know Congress is part of it. That means Charlie's head is legally up for the taking. And that's the plan. Can't beat her through politics, so they plan to end her life, because what better way to prove that you're the one who's right? Just knock off the one who's speaking against you, and that will somehow mean that you were correct all along. Or exactly the opposite. Yeah, probably that one. And it doesn't even mean anything anyways. I mean, who gives a shit if they remove the protections from level 10 government officials and the wealthy? They tell you in the movie that they're removing the protections to show that the Purge doesn't benefit, and I quote, the rich and the powerful. That's their word specifically. But the rich and the powerful are just going to hire security and hide away in fortified structures, so how exactly does removing the protections on them put them anywhere near the same level as the rest of us? It doesn't. But people are dumb and they have a habit of buying into whatever they're told by people they like. On the ground, we see a hard-working Joe, named Joe, taking care of his small deli and convenience store. He and his employee Marcos, who heavily supports Charlie's efforts while Joe doesn't really think she can win, are both just trying to get by in life and provide for themselves and the people who come into the store. As it turns out, Joe and his store have been a staple in this community for decades, and he's got a lot of respect from people in the neighborhood, including Lainey, who is said to have a very lethal reputation. So don't let the appearance or the blow pop fool you. She will fuck up your shit sideways if she has to. But she's now dropped that life and created a new one, driving an ambulance and helping people when they need it. Sort of a huge 180-degree U-turn, considering she was previously taking lives on Purge night and now she's saving them. However, not everybody is a fan of Joe. He has to deal with a couple of skanky teenage shoplifters, one of whom reminds me of a shit version of the rapper Lady of Rage. But while Lady of Rage might be super supreme, the teenage version in election year is super ass. Anyway, she gets annoying incredibly fast and is predictably one of the villains of the film. But we'll get to her in a moment. Soon after we're introduced to the main players of the movie and the protections are revoked for government officials, Charlie declares that she's staying home and not hiding away in a safe house somewhere. Leo is of course against this because his job is to keep her safe, and she keeps fucking with that by going out unprotected into crowds of people and doing things like this. I can understand both of their points of view. If she hides in a bunker or something, it's just going to kill her momentum in the polls, tank her political aspirations, and she won't ever be able to stop all of this from happening. However, as much as Leo supports her, he's also right about how somebody bumping her off would also significantly impact her effectiveness. After all, being alive tends to make it easier for you to govern. Of course, I guess there's always autopen. At the same time, Joe finds out his insurance premiums are skyrocketing by thousands of dollars, and he has to pay them to keep his Purge insurance. But since he can't pay whatever the astronomical amount is, the insurance company inconveniently drops his convenience store one day before all hell is set to break loose. With his whole life wrapped up in the store, Joe has no other choice but to defend it himself, and though he isn't Korean, he grabs a rifle and heads to the rooftop to protect his property. Marcos joins him and Lainey vows to keep an eye out just to make sure he's safe. As the night kicks off, Leo and his team have fortified Charlie's house as best as they can, but with a rat inside, things get heated quickly. The two of them have to escape into the streets, but unfortunately, the dangers follow, with people tasked specifically to take her out, and I don't mean for pizza, like I would do. Across town at Joe's store, it's so stupid. Across town at Joe's store, he and Marcos are camping out on the roof, ready for any trouble, and of course, it comes rolling down the road moments later, wrapped in Christmas lights and playing loud, shitty music. Afro Puffs and her gang of misshits pop out with gold-plated AK-47s they got from who the hell knows where, drenched in blood, and wearing the latest fashions from Louis Vuitton's 2PM Strippers catalog. They do some shit-talking, make some threats, and while Joe is trying to maintain the peace, Marcos isn't having any of it and pops a shot at Afro Puff's ears. I have no idea what her name is, and I don't really care, so I'm just going to keep calling her that. Even after getting shot in the head, she continues talking shit, admits to having killed her parents, and instead of Joe or Marcos just ending this crap right here and there, they ignore the continued threats of retaliation and allow the degenerate trash bags to drive off. Now, since this is Hollywood, of course they had to let them go so that way they can come back and do some nefarious nonsense later. But if this were real life, those psychopaths would be laying in the road already, leaking into the pavement before one word was ever said. At some point later, Charlie and Leo find their way to Joe's store because, of course they would. This is a movie after all. And while the gunmen tracking Charlie are still on their tail, They have more immediate problems to deal with when Afropuffs returns. She and her small but growing team of Mensa members come at the store with saws to cut through the metal door. Fortunately, Laney shows up and very quickly solves this problem without hesitation. It is easily one of the best moments in the movie, and watching such horrible bad guys get it is always satisfying. Anyway, the movie goes on from there with more chasing, more fighting, more running from psychotic random weirdos dressed as fictional characters, past presidents, or whatever else they could pick up at the local costume shop. There's also a dude covered in blood screaming about being the fittest, which, maybe we should keep an eye on that guy from this point forward, regardless of whether it's Purge night or not. We also get a notable death, which probably isn't wholly unexpected. It's unfortunate, and it didn't have to happen, and I think the story would have been better if it didn't, but I get why they went that way. There's also the face-off against the political assholes who are doing this whole thing, and Leo versus Terry Serpico's Danzinger. Fuck. There's also the face-off against the political assholes who are doing this whole thing, and Leo versus Terry Serpico's Danzinger, who's the leader of the soldiers that are coming after Charlie. But the movie goes pretty much where you expect. They save the day, the boat sinks, and then they deliver the whales of the future. Wait, no. I think I might have confused that with, two other movies. Election Year does have some tense moments, and it is very bloody and gory, but for the most part, this film does actually balance that out with the story. Films that can't do that, when they give up too much of the story just to go more into the blood and the guts and all that, they end up falling into the same space as Final Destination, and they end up being more about what ridiculous ways we can kill people rather than, following a coherent story. Fortunately, Election Year did not fall off that edge. In this movie, you have an idealistic senator who has suffered firsthand under the very system that she's trying to stop. But she's battling against a group of people who are almost cartoonishly evil in their awfulness. Still, despite their high portrayal of villainy, there's definitely some accuracy in how they're being presented and behave. These political leaders tell the people what they want and need, rather than listening to them. They rule over the population rather than serve. And instead of fixing the problems they themselves create, either by repealing failed policies or spending less of the money they take from their citizens, they choose to do things that only cause more strife, more division, and more degenerate behavior. So, as much as this movie is an extreme take on our system of governance and culture, it mirrors a lot of things that aren't far from fiction. And that itself is very depressing. So let's talk about something that isn't. The main players in the film rocked their roles from top to bottom. Frank Grillo is always good at these tough, tactical guys who you can typically rely on to keep fighting until the end. He doesn't give up, even when faced with impossible odds, no matter how much he gets beaten or shot. And he actually looks tired when he's going through the shit. He's not Tom Cruise fighting 50 people without taking a breath, and that makes him feel more authentic. Mykelti Williamson was the frustrated working man through and through, and there's a reason I like this guy so much in movies. He plays characters in ways that often feel like real life. Like this is a dude who might live in your neighborhood or work where you do. A lot of it comes from the way that he speaks, but the man who knows more shrimp recipes than anyone else on the planet always comes through with a relatable quality. Then we have Betty Gabriel. She always reminds me of Sasha from The Walking Dead. I think it's the hair, but she has a whole lot more of it. I have no idea how she deals with that. She was excellent as Lainey, and though her character starts out on the quieter side of the line, she gets loud and heavy when she needs to. She played that character switch flip well and ended up being one of my favorites in the whole film. JJ Soria, or Soria, I'm not really sure how you pronounce it, he knocked it out as Marcos, a dude with, wait for it, a dark past, who's mild-mannered by day, but when things need to get messy, you can count on him to take care of it. He played the character well, and like Betty Gabriel, when that switch needed to get flipped, he flips it. But he doesn't take Marcos to the blunt force trauma tactics that Lainey needed. Rather, he's more the type that does what needs to be done without going full dark force. And of course, there's my favorite actress on earth, Elizabeth Mitchell. Her acting is always felt through the screen. She often portrays her characters with empathy and interactions that feel like a real person, whereas a lot of Hollywood tends to come off with a plastic persona. And this is one of the things I have always liked about her, and it's a big part of why she's suction cupped to my brain like a Garfield plushie on a car window. I'd actually like to explore more of this particular group of people within this universe, just throughout their lives. And I mean the ones who actually lived. For instance, if I had the golden ticket from Last Action Hero, I'd jump in just to see what's going on with this cast. I'd have to make sure that I did it while Charlie's still in office. Once she was out, the block against the Purge went away and things sort of went way worse. When the Purge election year came out in 2016, it made $118 million worldwide against a budget of only $10 million, making it a financial monster. Like the Saw films, these movies, they don't usually cost too much to make, but they can haul in cash like a fleet of Brinks trucks. It's something other parts of Hollywood might want to look at. You don't have to spend $200 million to make a good movie, especially if you plan on profiting from it. Just make something people actually want to see, something that resonates well, and tell a story that's at least mildly interesting. Election year pretty much hits you over the head with it like a chair with a fat woman from Al Bundy's shoe store still sitting in it. But it does it well, and it works. We basically have one senator going against the whole government, seemingly as the only person who isn't trying to subjugate the population and get it to annihilate itself. So, what did you think of election year? Did you like it? Did you hate it? If you liked it, what was your favorite part? If you had to put it on a scale against the other Purge movies, where would you rank it? Personally, I'd put it up pretty high, and I'd rank Elizabeth Mitchell as a 28 out of 10, but that's me. Speaking of, which character was your favorite? And finally, if the Purge was somehow real, would you lock your doors and stay home? Or are you going off to be one of these idiots wandering around dressed like Snoopy, knocking people off? I don't know why that's always the first thing these people run off to do. It seems like the better move would be stealing a bulldozer and hitting a couple of banks. Grab the cash inside, hide it until morning, and then go deposit it the next day. Instant millionaire! That's what I would do. Anyway, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends and your enemies, and hit the like button if you liked it. If you didn't like it, well, like it anyways, because a like for this video is a vote for or against the Purge, whichever your preference is. Have a great 4th of July, don't become a homicidal moron, and have a fantabulous day. Goodbye!